everything right. You worked hard. You spent less than you earned. You put your money in a savings account, just like you were taught. And yet, somehow, you're getting poorer every single year. Not because you're spending too much. Not because you're not saving enough. Because the very account you trust to protect your money is quietly destroying its value. Today, the Wealth Code exposes the truth about savings accounts that almost nobody tells you. Intro. Welcome to the Wealth Code. The truth about money. The code to financial freedom. Saving money is good advice. Keeping all of it in a traditional savings account for the long term is not. There's a critical difference between these two ideas, and most people were never taught to separate them. Today I'm going to show you exactly why your savings account is silently losing you money, what is actually happening to your purchasing power every year, and what to do instead. This is one of the most important financial truths you will ever learn. Let's get into it. Point 1. Inflation is eating your money while you sleep. Here is the number most people have never confronted directly. Inflation is the rate at which prices rise and your money's purchasing power falls over time. In most economies, inflation runs somewhere between 3 and 10% per year, depending on the country and the period. Now compare that to what your savings account is actually paying you. Most traditional savings accounts offer interest rates far below the rate of inflation, often 1% or less, sometimes close to 0. Let that sink in. If inflation is running at 8% and your savings account is paying you 1%, your money is losing 7% of its real value every single year. You check your balance and it looks the same or even slightly higher because of the small interest earned. But the number on the screen is an illusion. What that number can actually buy in food, fuel, rent, school fees, everyday goods is shrinking constantly. This is called negative real interest. Your money is growing in number and shrinking in power at the same time. And because it happens slowly, a little every month, almost nobody notices until they look back 5 or 10 years and realize their savings bought far more back than they do now. Point 2. The silent theft nobody talks about. Let's make this painfully real with numbers. Imagine you save the equivalent of $10,000 in a standard savings account, earning 1% interest annually. After 1 year, you have $10,100. But if inflation that year was 8%, the things that cost $10,000 last year now cost $10,800. Your savings grew by $100, but your cost of living grew by $800. You are $700 worse off in real terms, despite doing everything you were told to do. Now extend that gap over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The compounding effect is brutal. Money sitting in a low-interest savings account for decades does not just fail to grow. It actively shrinks in real purchasing power year after year, compounding downward exactly the way wealth-building assets compound upward. This is not theft in the criminal sense. Nobody is breaking into your account and taking money out. But the effect on your life is identical. You worked for that money. You sacrificed to save it. And inflation, left unchallenged, quietly takes a meaningful portion of its value every single year you leave it sitting still. Point 3. Why banks want you to keep it there. This is the part of the story most people never think to question. Why does this system exist the way it does? Banks take the money you deposit into your savings account and lend it out to other customers for mortgages, car loans, business loans at significantly higher interest rates than they pay you. The difference between what they pay you and what they charge borrowers is a major source of their profit. This means the bank is deeply incentivized to keep your money sitting in a low-interest account for as long as possible. Your safe savings account is, from the bank's perspective, cheap capital they get to use to generate much larger returns for themselves. This is not a conspiracy. It is simply how commercial banking has always worked. But understanding this incentive changes how you should think about where your money sits. The bank is not a charity protecting your wealth out of kindness. It is a business, and your low-interest savings account is a profitable product for them, not necessarily the best vehicle for you. None of this means banks or savings accounts are evil or should be avoided entirely. It means they should be used for what they are actually good for, and not mistaken for a wealth-building tool. Point 4. What savings accounts are actually for. To be clear, this video is not telling you to empty your savings account. Savings accounts have an important, specific purpose. They are for your emergency fund, money you may need access to immediately without any risk of loss. They are for short-term goals, money you plan to spend within the next 1 to 2 years, where you cannot afford market volatility to interfere with your plans. They are for liquidity, having cash readily available for opportunities or emergencies without having to sell investments at a bad time. For these purposes, a savings account is exactly the right tool. You're not trying to grow this money aggressively. You're trying to protect its accessibility and its stability. The problem only begins when people use a savings account for money that does not need to be liquid. Money meant for long-term goals, retirement, or wealth building. That money, left in a low-interest account for years or decades, is being slowly devalued by inflation instead of growing to meet the future it was actually saved for. The fix is not abandoning savings accounts. The fix is correctly separating your money by purpose and giving each portion the right vehicle. Point 5, where long-term money should actually go. If your money is not needed for the next 2 to 3 years, it should not be sitting in a traditional low-interest savings account. It should be working. Index funds and exchange-traded funds offer historical average annual returns that significantly outpace inflation over the long term, typically 7 to 10% annually over multi-decade periods, even accounting for downturns along the way. Government and corporate bonds offer returns generally higher than savings accounts, with lower risk than stocks, for money with a medium-term time horizon. Real estate investment trusts allow exposure to property markets and regular income, without needing to buy physical property. High-yield savings accounts or money market accounts, where available, at minimum offer better rates than standard savings accounts for money you still want to keep relatively liquid. Dividend-paying stocks provide both potential appreciation and regular income that can outpace inflation over time. None of these options are guaranteed, and all carry more risk than a savings account. But that is exactly the point. Money that sits with zero risk in a savings account is not actually safe in the way most people believe. It faces a guaranteed, slow loss of value through inflation. True safety for long-term wealth is not the absence of all risk. It is choosing the right level of risk for the right time horizon, and accepting calculated risk where the data clearly shows it protects and grows your wealth far better than the false safety of a non-growing account. Point 6. The psychological trap of safe. Here is why so many people stay stuck in this pattern even after learning the numbers. Savings accounts feel safe. There is no visible drop in your balance. No red numbers. No scary chart showing a decline. Every time you check your account, it shows the same amount or slightly more. That feeling of stability is comforting, and it is also misleading. The damage caused by inflation is invisible on your bank statement. It only becomes visible when you compare what your money could buy in the past to what it can buy now. Investing, by contrast, comes with visible volatility. The value goes up and down. Some months show losses. That feels uncomfortable, even frightening, especially to someone who has never experienced it before. But discomfort and danger are not the same thing. The volatility of long-term investing is the price of admission for returns that protect and grow your purchasing power over time. The stillness of a savings account is the price of admission for a guaranteed, invisible erosion of that same purchasing power. Recognizing this distinction is one of the most important shifts in financial thinking you will ever make. Comfort is not the same as safety, and true financial safety sometimes requires becoming comfortable with controlled, well-understood discomfort. Point 7. How to actually make the shift. Knowing this information changes nothing if you do not act on it. Here is exactly how to make the shift, step by step. First, calculate your true emergency fund. Typically 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. That amount stays in your savings account, untouched for genuine emergencies. Second, identify any additional money sitting in savings that you do not plan to spend within the next 2 to 3 years. Be honest with yourself here. Money just in case that has sat untouched for years beyond your emergency fund is a candidate for this shift. Third, research and open an investment account appropriate for your country and circumstances. A brokerage account for index funds and ETFs, a retirement account if available, or a regulated investment platform. Fourth, move that excess money gradually if the amount feels large, or all at once if you're comfortable, into diversified, long-term investments aligned with your time horizon and risk tolerance. Fifth, automate ongoing contributions so that future income is split intelligently between liquidity in your savings account and growth in your investment accounts, without requiring a fresh decision every single month. This is not a complicated process. It is simply a redirection of money that was already being saved toward vehicles that actually preserve and grow its value instead of slowly losing to inflation. The hardest part is not the mechanics. It is making the decision to stop trusting the illusion of a static number and start trusting the math of real purchasing power. Motivational close. You were taught to save money. And that instinct, that discipline is genuinely valuable. The problem was never that you saved. The problem is that nobody taught you what to do with that money once it was saved. A savings account is a parking space. It is not a vehicle for growth. And money that should be moving toward your future has been parked, unmoving, while the cost of everything around it continues to rise. You now understand something that most people who have worked their entire lives never fully grasp. That a static balance is not the same as financial progress. That comfort is not the same as safety. That the things that feel the safest are sometimes the things quietly costing you the most. This is not a reason for panic. It is a reason for action. Protect your emergency fund. Keep your short-term money liquid. But for everything else, let your money do what money is supposed to do. Grow, work, compound. Build your future instead of slowly eroding while it waits. You have the knowledge now. The only thing left is the decision to use it. Call to action. If this changed how you see your savings, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to The Wealth Code. Financial truth every single week. Drop a comment below. How much of your savings have you realized today should actually be invested? The code is yours. Start building. Locked with Key Money Bag.